All right, so today we're doing a deep dive on conspiracy theories.
Yeah, we're going full on into that world today.
We are unpacking an interview with investigative journalist Cristina Martín Jiménez.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Who's really made a name for herself by exposing what she believes are these like shadowy machinations of global elites.
Yeah, it's some pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, and you know what I find so fascinating about this particular deep dive?
What's that?
Is that her journey into this world
Okay.
starts with something that's actually very personal.
Right,
And
yeah.
kind of like an existential crisis.
I could see that.
So what was the catalyst for her deep dive into, as she calls it, the world of elites?
Well, just imagine being like in your late teens, early 20s, and suddenly it's like the rug's pulled out from under you.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of what happened to Cristina.
Okay.
She describes this awakening, this realization she had that everything around us is a lie. And she becomes obsessed with uncovering the truth,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to power structures.
Okay, so she goes from this crisis of faith, to use that analogy,
Yeah.
to focusing on institutions like the Bilderberg Group.
Right.
How does that happen?
Well-
Was it a straight line from A to B?
Not exactly straight line, but
Okay.
it seems like her early interest in writers like Kafka played a role.
Okay, Kafka.
Yeah, Kafka,
Yeah.
master of exploring themes of alienation and the absurdity of these seemingly all-powerful systems.
Right.
You can see how those themes might resonate with someone who is questioning the nature of power.
I can see that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's got Kafka on the brain. She's questioning everything.
Right.
And then she gets into investigating the Bilderberg Group.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not just her personal journey anymore.
Okay.
It's like she's stepping into this world of censorship and suppression.
Right.
She writes a book
Yeah.
called The Bilderberg Club, The Reality About the Masters of the World.
Okay.
And then bam, it's pulled from circulation.
What happened?
It's a bit of a mystery, but the timing is definitely suspicious.
Really?
Shortly after its release,
Okay.
which coincided with a Bilderberg meeting in Sitges, Spain.
Okay.
Her publisher withdrew the book, citing it wasn't politically correct.
Oh, now that's just asking for conspiracy theories.
Right.
Politically correct can be such a loaded term.
It is very loaded.
What does that even mean in this context? Who decided her book was too hot to handle?
And that's a question that Cristina herself grapples with throughout her work.
Okay.
Who gets to decide what we can and cannot discuss?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to powerful individuals and organizations.
Right.
It's like her investigation hit a nerve, and someone somewhere
Right.
did not want that information out there.
You'd think that having your book pulled like that would make someone shy away from a topic.
Right, you would think so.
But not Cristina.
Yeah, she's not easily deterred.
She dove headfirst into this world.
She doubled down even.
Yeah. Even facing lawsuits and getting banned from Facebook.
Wow.
What kept her going?
I think that's what makes her story so compelling.
Okay.
It's clear that she deeply believes in the importance of her work.
Yeah.
Even when it means facing censorship and powerful adversaries.
Right.
She seems convinced that she's uncovered something significant,
Yeah.
a truth that needs to be told.
And that truth, from what I understand, is that groups like the Bilderberg Group hold a disproportionate amount of power and influence,
That's the gist of it. Yeah.
and that they're shaping global events from the shadows.
Yeah, they're pulling the strings behind the scenes.
But let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
Who is the Bilderberg Group, and what do they actually do?
Right.
And how does one even go about investigating them?
It's not easy, that's for sure.
So we're talking about a group so secretive that most people probably haven't even heard of them.
Yeah, they're like the Illuminati of the political world.
Okay, so give us the lowdown.
Right.
Who is the Bilderberg Group?
Well, Cristina, she really digs into their origins.
Okay.
And it's like something out of a Cold War thriller.
Really?
Yeah, picture this 1954
Okay.
World's on Edge.
Yeah.
And a group of these powerful North American and European elites.
Okay.
They gather in a hotel in the Netherlands. That was the first Bilderberg meeting.
Sounds ominous.
Right.
Yeah.
But their stated goal was to foster dialogue and cooperation between the West and Europe,
Okay.
especially in the face of the Soviet Union.
So it's all about countering communism, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
It's-
Strengthening ties between the U.S. and Europe.
Okay. So high stakes diplomacy in the midst of the Cold War.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
But fast forward to today, and they're still meeting, right?
Oh, yeah, they're still going strong.
What's changed?
Well, for one thing, they have a website now.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they've at least acknowledged their existence,
Right.
which is a step up from complete secrecy.
I guess so.
But on their website, they claim they're now focused on tackling these global challenges,
Okay.
which sounds pretty vague.
Yeah, it does.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They're also concerned about things like populism
Okay.
and the regulation of social media.
Populism. That can be kind of a loaded term.
It is.
Don't they say one of their original goals was to strengthen democracy?
That's what they claim. Yeah.
But it seems a bit contradictory to support democracy, but then be wary of populist movements.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of Christina's work.
Okay.
Because populism, in its purest form, it's about the common person having a voice.
Right.
But it can also be manipulated
Oh, absolutely.
and exploited
Yeah.
to undermine democratic institutions.
Right.
So it's less about the word itself and more about how it's being used.
Okay.
And who benefits from either promoting or suppressing these movements.
So it's all about context.
Exactly.
Okay, so they're concerned about the potential for social unrest.
Yeah, they don't want people rocking the boat too much.
Yeah, for people challenging the status quo.
Exactly.
And they're meeting against the backdrop of a war in Ukraine,
Right.
growing tensions between the US and China.
Major global instability.
This isn't some coincidence, is it?
That's what Cristina would argue.
Okay.
She sees a direct connection between the issues discussed at these Bilderberg meetings
Right.
and major global events.
So you're telling me that this group, which operates in secrecy, could be trying to influence the course of global events?
That's the implication.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory.
It does, right.
Yeah.
But remember how we talked about Cristina having her own book on this group pulled from circulation?
Right, yeah.
That experience seems to have really solidified her belief that there are these powerful forces working to suppress dissenting voices, especially when it comes to challenging these widely accepted narratives.
Right.
And nowhere is this more evident in her work than in her claims about the pandemic.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting.
And so things get wild.
We know Cristina believes the pandemic was planned.
Right, a manufactured crisis.
And she even lays out a 6-step playbook in her book, The Truth About the Pandemic.
Yeah, she breaks it down like it's a how-to manual.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay.
What is step 1?
Step 1, according to Cristina, is to create the crisis.
Okay.
In this
Cool.
case, it was the emergence of the virus itself.
Right.
You need a crisis for there to be a plan.
Okay. That makes sense, at least in a general sense.
Right.
What's step 2?
Amplify the fear.
Okay, how so?
Cristina argues that certain media outlets played a key role in creating this climate of panic and uncertainty around the virus.
Okay.
She points to the relentless news coverage,
Oh, yeah.
the alarming headlines,
Right.
the constant focus on worst-case scenarios.
It was pretty scary at the beginning.
It was.
Yeah.
And she believes that was all intentional.
So she's saying this was a deliberate attempt to make people more afraid and therefore more willing to accept drastic measures.
It's about controlling the narrative.
Okay, so we're 5 steps into this playbook. Create a crisis, amplify the fear, attack the economy, exploit the crisis to seize greater control and wealth. What are the final 2 steps?
Well, the 5th step in this alleged playbook is a big one: suppress dissent.
Okay.
Cristina argues that anyone who dared question the official narrative during the pandemic, whether they were scientists, medical professionals, or just regular people expressing doubts online, faced censorship, ridicule, and even accusations of spreading misinformation.
So it's about controlling the narrative, making sure that only certain perspectives are heard.
Exactly. She argues that this happened on a massive scale, with social media platforms removing posts and suspending accounts, and mainstream media outlets dismissing alternative viewpoints as dangerous conspiracy theories.
Which makes you wonder, what were they so afraid of people hearing?
That's a question Cristina asks throughout her work.
Okay.
She believes that by silencing dissent, those in power were able to maintain control over this situation and prevent people from asking critical questions.
So it's about keeping the public in the dark, preventing them from connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
That's her argument, and it's a scary thought, especially if you believe, as she does, that there were ulterior motives at play.
Okay, so let's get to the final step in this playbook. Step 6. What is it?
Offer a solution that benefits those who orchestrated the crisis in the first place.
Okay.
Cristina argues that the solutions offered during the pandemic, whether it was lockdowns, mandates, or vaccines, ended up benefiting certain individuals and industries while doing little to address the root causes of the crisis.
So it's about profiting from the problem you helped create.
That's the gist of it, and she's not alone in this view. There's a growing movement of people who believe that the pandemic was used as an opportunity to advance certain agendas.
It's definitely a lot to unpack, and I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking, if all of this is true, if there are these powerful forces working against us, what hope do we have?
That's where Christina's perspective takes kind of a hopeful turn. She believes that even in the face of this, overwhelming power, there's still something we can do to resist.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the antidote to all of this, according to Cristina?
Love.
Love as in hearts and flowers love.
Well, not exactly. She's talking about a deeper kind of love, a love for humanity, for truth, and for freedom.
So how does love fight back against global elites and their schemes?
Well, Cristina sees it as a form of rebellion, a way to reclaim our humanity in a world that often feels really dehumanizing. She talks about the importance of family, of community, of connecting with something larger than ourselves.
So it's about strengthening the bonds between people instead of letting ourselves be divided and conquered.
Exactly. She argues that the family unit is like the first and most important structure of power that we encounter, and that's why those who seek to control us often try to undermine it.
That makes sense. If you can break down those bonds between people and make them feel isolated and alone, they're more likely to become dependent on the state or on corporations.
Right, and she uses a powerful example from her own life to illustrate this. She talks about witnessing the Egyptian people's defiance during the pandemic. Despite the lockdowns and restrictions, people still went out, opened their businesses, lived their lives.
So they chose connection and community over fear and isolation.
Exactly. They refused to let their lives be completely controlled by outside forces. And that's a powerful message for all of us, I think.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can still shine through.
Yeah, and that's really the heart of Christina's message. It's about recognizing the power we have as individuals to think critically, to question authority, and to choose love over fear.
It's about taking responsibility for our own lives and for the world around us.
Precisely. And that starts with asking tough questions, even if those questions make some people uncomfortable.
It's about having the courage to see the world as it is, not as we want it to be.
And to never stop fighting for a better future, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against us.
That's a powerful message to end on. So if our listeners take away one thing from this deep dive into Cristina's work, what do you hope it is?
I hope it's that they feel empowered to question, to think for themselves, and to never give up on the pursuit of truth, no matter how difficult it may seem.
Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better equipped we are to navigate the complexities of the world around us.
And to create a future that is truly just and equitable for all.
This has been quite a deep dive. Thanks for joining us today, and a special thanks to you for bringing this thought-provoking material to our attention.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep digging for the truth, and most importantly, keep an open mind.